Wow, what a juicy story. So many moving parts. We're going to have a fantastic discussion. All right, so as I tweeted last week, and I didn't tease you, I didn't question whether it might happen. I told you. I said straight out that Henry Cavill was in talks to return as Superman, and that talks were going so well, a deal would very likely be announced the following week, this week. And that's exactly what happened. Side note, I want to thank all of you who defend me and advocate for me on Twitter, on social media. It really means a lot. I'm disappointed that some people continue to try and attack my credibility on scoops when I've had like a 95% correct, rate. And I gotta say, as I say, you gotta toot your own horn, because then who else is gonna toot it? But the last week or so, I've been rocking 100%. So it means I can't respond to every one of you or like every one of your comments, but I see them, and it's rough out there. The scooping is a rough business, surprisingly so. So I just want to say that just means the world to me. I just couldn't appreciate it more. You guys are just fantastic. I cannot express how much it means to me. But I promised you some Henry Cavill tea, and I have some for you today. All right, so yes, Warner Brothers did not announce the deal themselves. They leaked it through a major trade, in this case, Deadline. And just so you know, when an exclusive shows up in Deadline, The Hollywood Reporter, or Variety, those are the big three trades, it's usually the studio or the talent's reps making the announcement through back channels. That's how they do it. Sometimes there's never an official announcement, and I hear there might not be one here. We'll see. I'm hearing that instead Warner Brothers, instead of saying, we're back in the Henry Cavill business, instead they're going to announce movies, upcoming DCEU movies. By the way, officially confirmed with the launch of HBO Max yesterday, they are sticking with DCEU. It's a hashtag. Just stick with it. And it has a nice yin-yang with the MCU. So I think it works. But anyway, I think they're going to say, we're going to do Black Adam and Shazam 2 and Superman. Henry Cavill will be there. We're going to talk about the movies he's expected, that I'm hearing he's going to be popping up in. And then they'll either do them individually or as a group. Because I think that Warner Brothers, from what I'm hearing, still doesn't love Henry Cavill. They don't really want to give him a big splashy headline that he's back for good. I think they're like, yeah. I mean, they've had a really rocky road together, and it isn't over. I think I think they were very disappointed with him unwilling to do the Shazam cameo. I mean, they had to have a headless Superman walk in there because of that. That's just embarrassing. Over money. It's like, you're supposed to have like some goodwill, like they do over at Marvel. I mean, you get the big checks for your movie, although apparently Henry Cavill wanted a bigger check for Man of Steel 2 than Warner Brothers was willing to cut. I also hear he wanted director approval, and Warner Brothers felt, and I agree, Henry Cavill's very good, but he's not the level of getting director approval. From what I've heard about Henry Cavill, he has a problem understanding the hierarchy of Hollywood and where he currently stands. He's not at the bottom, by any means, but he's not at the top. So I think that there's still those problems. And in fact, Warner Brothers still has not agreed to do Man of Steel 2. They're just doing these small roles, maybe even just cameos in other movies. And with that in mind, they have found a way to get around his pay requests. You get a much smaller payday for smaller roles. So why did Cavill blink, right? I mean, why didn't he do this months or a year ago? Why didn't he say he would do Man of Steel 2 for less, right? Well, I think there are two reasons that are pushing him to say, all right, let's just do this right now, and why he's willing to eat a little humble pie. Or humble protein shake. Henry Cavill don't eat no pie, although I think in quarantine, he's very good on Instagram, and I think he has been cooking up a storm. But anyway, one, he ain't getting any work outside of The Witcher. It's a real problem, and it's amazing to me. I've told you again and again that he's difficult to deal with, and a lot of you refuse to believe that. But why isn't he getting work? Because he's magic on screen. He's great. I mean, I think he hasn't been totally given the right circumstances of Superman yet, but you can see the potential there, which is why we want him to continue. But he's amazing in The Witcher, and he was amazing in Mission Impossible, right? So I don't understand why people don't see that and go, we should hire him. It's because I think they hear these stories about him behind the scenes that I hear. So, yes, some of you are probably like, oh, he's in Enola Holmes, Grace. He's playing Sherlock Holmes. But that's a kid's movie on Netflix. Millie Bobby Brown is Sherlock Holmes' spunky younger sister, and he's just like a supporting cameo at best there, and he's going to show up as her older brother, Sherlock Holmes. So that's not great work for him. And then maybe he'll come back for the next 2 back-to-back Mission Impossible movies. They've teased that everyone's going to return, and maybe they'll do a flashback with him, which would be fantastic. I think it was horrible that they killed him in the last Mission Impossible because he was such a great character. I'm like, and they made it in a way like a Black Mask situation where they're like, there's no way he can come back. And you're like, why would you do that? Didn't you see the magic that was happening while you were filming? Or even in post and like edit it so that maybe he could come back? I mean, he was amazing. But he's not currently listed for the movie. Also, on the subject of The Witcher, while it's a huge hit for Netflix, well, I don't know, maybe people are just watching the first 2 minutes, but it was, you know, there was a lot of attention when it came out. I think it's definitely a win for him, in the win column for him and Netflix. But for mysterious reasons, not a single big name would join on for season 2 to play the very important role of Vesemir. Isn't that bizarre? What was keeping them from doing it? I mean, I know the reviews weren't great, but I mean, it was turned down from people like Mads Mikkelsen and Alec Baldwin. Like, they've taken work before in projects that weren't particularly highly regarded from a critical perspective. Why'd they say no to this? It might have been a money issue, like Mark Hamill wanted to do it, but it didn't work out. Maybe because he's like, I don't want to do it that much if you're going to pay me. I mean, I'm freaking Mark Hamill. And I'd be like, how little, I mean, Netflix has a ton of money. How little could they possibly be paying? But anyway, Kim Bodnia got the role. Not that he won't do an amazing job. I like Kim Bodnia quite a bit. But you think they would have been able to get a bigger name. And you have to wonder if Henry Cavill's difficulty is part of that problem. And then 2, this is, I think, the big one. It's a ticking time bomb until Warner Brothers recasts Superman. Maybe. Because they recast Batman, right? And many have been tweeting what a great Superman David Cornsweet from... that's such a bad name for an actor. Although... maybe not for Clark Kent, right? He's got corn in his last name from, you know, Kansas, fields of corn. But they're saying he would be a great Superman to Pattinson's Batman. So that's got to have been making Henry Cavill sweat. So, but this is where things get really interesting. So on that note, if these Henry Cavill cameos work out, and I really think that they will, by the way. I think less is more with Henry, as we'll discuss. I think it's a good idea. So the only problem could be that he just continues to be very difficult on set and two-faced in his dealings with people. I feel that's the only thing at this point that could torpedo him, where they're like, you know, I just don't want to help this guy out, and I don't like having him on set. For instance, I'll tell you a little bit of tea. I heard that he was thinking of tweeting out his support for the Snyder Cut or putting it out on Instagram in November. But instead of just doing it, he apparently called Warner Brothers to see if it was okay. And I guess they said no, or I guess they didn't give him a definitive answer, and he was like, better safe than sorry. But I think it's hard for anyone to respect somebody who's like kind of sniveling. You know, like, come on. It's like, why would you be like all of a sudden like best buddies with Warner Brothers when just a couple of months ago you wouldn't do their Shazam cameo and you were demanding so much money you were holding up a Superman sequel, right? I mean, I'd be like, whose side are you on? And I told you, he's on Henry Cavill's side, and that's fine. But I think he goes about it the wrong way. But with Cavill back in play, and Godot and Momoa doing very well in their roles, suddenly it's Pattinson who's the odd man out. And quite frankly, doesn't fit with that group at all. He doesn't, even though he kind of is a contemporary to them, he doesn't look like it. And the odds of Batfleck just went up, right? So this is very good for Batfleck, for those of you who want to see that Ben Affleck return. And it's even good, I think, for Jared Leto's Joker, especially with all this Ayer cut activity. Suddenly, it's cool. I mean, so many people used to ridicule Jared Leto's Joker, but suddenly everyone's like, we need to see this performance. I've always been in that camp. I feel that he could, I think, just like with Henry Cavill and Superman, I'm like, there's something there. This was good casting. And so I want to see it in the Ayer cut too. I just feel it's disrespectful to the Snyder Cut to be pushing it so hard before we even get the Snyder. I mean, that's like that's a whole different conversation. But anyway, as for your other burning question, how about Man of Steel 2? What's going on with that? How likely is it to happen, even though, because Warner Brothers hasn't greenlit it yet? It's not part of this deal. Well, as Warner Brothers sprinkles Henry Cavill over their upcoming DCEU projects that need an assist, they could be creating a trail of breadcrumbs that does indeed lead to Man of Steel 2 and even Justice League 2. As I also reported to you, Warner Brothers has asked Zack Snyder to put in groundwork for both projects, Man of Steel 2 and Justice League 2, into the Snyder Cut, so that if it is a hit, they will have a place to move forward, a clear route. And now I was thinking, and also as I discussed with you, that the Snyder DC story might continue exclusively on HBO Max, that it would stay there. But with these developments and Henry Cavill continuing with Superman on the big screen, right, it makes it seem like this could be a potential big screen play for Man of Steel 2 and Justice League 2, which is exciting. I still think the TV HBO Max option is on the table. I think it all depends on how well the Snyder Cut does. So don't pirate it, watch it, or you have no one to blame but yourself when this doesn't pan out. All right, so what films will he cameo in? We're all hearing Shazam 2, right? Which is, again, delightfully ironic since his refusal to do that cameo was one of the big problems that Warner Brothers had with him and led to this whole debacle in the first place. And also, it's important to note that The Rock and his team are behind Shazam, which is why I think that Henry Cavill will show up in Black Adam. Now, I've seen that disputed over the past 24 hours, but I'm hearing from my sources that he's going to be in Black Adam, and it just makes sense. This is why I told you the other day in my Snyder Cut video that it's important to understand the business of Hollywood when following these developments so that you can connect the dots. Boss Logic recently revealed that Dwayne Johnson commissioned him. You know, Boss Logic does those fantastic pieces of fan art, well, professional fan art, let's say. Very good. And he was commissioned by Dwayne Johnson himself to do a concept art drawing of Black Adam versus Superman. Well, Black Adam was losing, right? But I think that's great. And while the JSA is very cool, you're watching Stargirl, you should be watching Stargirl. Stupid weekly release schedule. But anyway, I told you months ago that the JSA is going to be a big part of Black Adam, and they are, as you're now seeing multiple places reporting. But they're not the kind of main event that puts butts in the seats. And The Rock knows a little something about putting butts in the seats, right? Black Adam versus Superman is a main event. And of course, Dany Garcia, Dwayne Johnson's ex-wife, current business partner, and his manager, is also Henry Cavill's manager, as we've discussed a lot. So The Rock and Dany Garcia aren't just in the Black Adam Shazam business and the Rock business, but they're also in the Henry Cavill business. That's very important. As they say, who benefits, right? So Dwayne Johnson's box office, let's face it, is uneven. This is a safety net, adding Superman to the movie. You know, because there's a sameness sometimes to a little bit to his movies. You know, you don't want this to be DCEU Fast and Furious. So if you had Superman, it's more, I think, related to the core of what's going on, the core activity. Dwayne Johnson and Dany Garcia, let's be honest, they get a cut of Henry Cavill's salary. And also, it shows that they do a good job as managers, and maybe they can sign other clients. I mean, they're by far and away their two biggest clients, Dwayne Johnson and Henry Cavill. So they want to show that you want to be repped by Dany Garcia. That's very important. Cavill keeps Superman from being recast, at least for now, and maybe gets in a better negotiating position if the Snyder Cut is a huge hit, if he's really well received in these supporting roles or cameos. And then maybe for Man of Steel 2, he can get more money, and he can get director approval if he's able to raise his standing. And Warner Brothers gets a boost for upcoming DCEU projects that, quite frankly, without Cavill, are not slam dunks. So I think this is a very good idea. I mean, as I said earlier, I think that based on his amazing supporting work in Mission Impossible and The Witcher, which, you know, even though he was used to advertise it, when you actually see the show, it's clearly an ensemble. I think less is more with Henry Cavill. I think that's the best way to utilize him. And I think this is a great strategy for everybody involved. Everyone who benefits, I'll tell you who. Everyone, including fans. Now, I think we have to also, finally, the thing I want to say last is I want to give The Rock and Dany Garcia credit for getting this done. It certainly wasn't easy. Now, sure, they were self-motivated, but everyone's self-motivated. You just have to go about it the right way, as I was saying. You get more flies with honey than vinegar, as the saying goes, and I think Henry Cavill really should have done that Shazam cameo. I think he really should have done it. All right, so what do you think? Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.